Hello Internet, welcome to Making Money. My name's Eric and this is your Daily Dollar, our financial segment where I give you one lesson every day to help you reach your financial goals. You're looking for a job, let's say, and you're getting to that point where you know what kind of job you want, what kind of industry, what kind of company you want to work for, and it's time to start applying to those jobs. And one of the things that you need for that is a resume. Except your resume looks a lot like a blank piece of paper with your name at the top of it right now. Today, our lesson is resumes. How to create a good resume. This is a very interesting topic in my opinion, and something that is often looked over, especially on entry-level jobs. There is a lot involved in creating a good resume, and there's a lot of resources out there to do it. We're going to give kind of a generalized overview of it today, and I'm going to call out some things that you might want to look up along the way to be able to build a better resume. First thing, the basic block layout of a resume. You should obviously have your name and address and information, contact information at the top of your resume. That's important. They need to know who you are and how to get a hold of you. I like to put a section in the top that's directly related to the job that I'm applying to. It may even be specific to the company that I'm applying to. I may tweak that for each resume I submit. There are cover letters, and when you apply to some jobs, they want a cover letter. And if you're gonna do a cover letter, you definitely want that to be specific to the company that you are applying to, specific to that role. Cover letters normally will be a paragraph or a page just detailing what you're looking for in an employer, why you're interested in this job, maybe a little bit about your background. It should be relatively general, but at the same time specific to this company. So I would be interested in company X. They, have a track record of XYZ. I'm very interested in, industry A, and my background here, and here shows that I can be, effective in this role. That's really vague, and I would recommend Googling cover letters if you're going to do a cover letter. But it should be specific. And likewise, I like to put a section at the top of my resume where it calls out what job I'm applying to and a short one paragraph. And when I say paragraph, I mean like 2 sentences max, hardly a paragraph. As to, what I'm looking for in an employer, and, what my background is. It can be really simple, but I find that is very effective because it gives the, either the interviewer or the hiring manager or the recruiter something quick and simple to look at and, get an idea of who you are. This is also your first chance to kind of introduce yourself, so that's always important. Next is normally education, and depending on where you're coming from, your background, you may or may not have a lot of formal education. That's fine. If you do have formal education, be sure to put that on there. If you have concentrations, be sure to put that on there. This is not the section where you would put certificates. This is more formal education. If you have, high school degree, if you have a bachelor's degree, master's degrees, anything like that, this should go in that section. Keep it relatively brief, but also point out any, honors that you may have in any areas for any reason. If you are someone, again, that doesn't have a lot of educational experience, put down what you do have. You want to be transparent in this process, but you also want to call out what skills you do have. So make sure to fill that part out. The next part is arguably the most important, and that is the job segment, your employment history. Some people will go back a ways when it comes to employment history, and some people argue whether or not your resume should be 1 or 2 pages if you have a ton of history. Normally, I like to keep to 1 page, but in the past couple of years, I have gone to 2 pages. When you identify what industry you're looking at, you may want to start Googling example resumes. If you are in a financially heavy or business heavy role that you're looking at, there are certain layouts and templates that are more appropriate for that kind of industry, that kind of job. If it's more of a generic one, you can kind of build your own, but there's a ton of resources online. Again, I would recommend Googling resume templates, and specifically resume templates for the industry or role that you're looking for. Back to job experience. Your job experience should have a breakdown of what job you did, where you worked, and then some information as to what you did in that role. It can be relatively high leveled, but you should call out any skills or experience that you needed or gathered while you were on that job. Responsibilities that you had are big. This is a good spot to put that in. I would normally put only applicable job experience. This is an interesting spot if you're someone who either has very little job experience, very new, either right out of school, or someone who just hasn't worked a lot in the past, or you're someone with a ton of experience. You've jumped around from job to job to job to job, which can come off negatively on a resume if it is just spending a short time at each job and then moving on. I would recommend not putting a ton of information here, but at least putting 3 would probably be a good amount if you're able to muster that. This can be obviously easier if you have 3 that are applicable, that are over a longer period of time. If you do have a lot of jumping from one job to the next, be prepared to talk to that. This is not something you want to hide. It's going to be on your resume. And that's a good point right there, is that you never want to hide or lie on a resume. That is huge. Obviously, there's ethical implications there, but there also can be very heavy financial implications if anybody were to find out that you had lied on a resume. Treat it like a contract. You are giving information about yourself that they will use to invest in you, hire you based on. So that can be big if you do lie. Do not lie. Be transparent. But again, if you do have situations that are not great, don't bring a ton of focus onto them. But yeah, you'll have to list them and be prepared to talk to them. So if you're jumping from a bunch of jobs, I would put maybe the last 3, max last 4 on your resume. But again, put information, what you learned, what you took away from it. Try to be as positive as possible. I know that can be difficult sometimes, especially if you had a bad experience with an employer, but you don't want to be walking into an interview later on and just bad-mouthing old companies. You definitely want to show what you've learned more than, any negative situations that you walked away with. So that's jobs in a nutshell. After this part, I'll normally put a section for certificates or any, awards or stuff like that. Any other maybe extracurricular activities that you do that may be applicable to the job. Again, that's kind of to your discretion, and that'll depend on the role that you're applying for. Best thing to do in that case is to identify what other people that have applied to roles like the one you're going for have put. But I'll also tend to end with a skills section that breaks down different skills and that are applicable for this job. That may not be something that I'm necessarily, formally trained in, but I have problem-solving skills, that kind of stuff. And that's more or less my layout. There's one other piece that sometimes I'll put in, and that's after that paragraph at the top. Sometimes I'll put in a little section before education where I point out some, kind of like bullet point information about myself. I'm quality trained. I have, X technical skill, Yeah, there's going to be spots for technical skills, but even just like maybe 6 bullet points at the top there can also be a great way to summarize yourself really quick for a recruiter or a hiring manager. Not necessary all the time, but something to think about. We are talking about the skills at the bottom here, so that's important. And certificates. Now, this certificate and skills section is big. It's big especially if you do not have a lot of educational or job experience. This is where you can flush out your resume a little bit more. Know what you're looking for when it comes to the job, what role you're trying to get into, what industry you're trying to get into. That's very important. Obviously, you're applying. Once you've done that, start looking into, and we talked about this yesterday a little bit, start looking into what that kind of job, what you'll need for that job, what skills would be good for that job, what certificates one might have that's going into that job. Basic information like Excel or Word. Do you need that kind of information? Some of these, basic, troubleshooting skills things could be stuff that you already have. If you're a good problem solver, put that down if that's important for the role. put that in your skills section. If you are lacking any of the skills or certificates or anything like that you would like to flesh out, look at going online and trying to get some free certificates. And I don't mean buying them or just printing them out from somewhere else. I mean like going onto like LinkedIn Learning, where you can get, take a short, course on Excel, for example, and then they give you some quizzes along the way, and then they give you a certificate at the end, and then you can put that on your resume. Any honors, again, that kind of stuff, always good, even if it is local honors, like you helped out at food bank. You do that every so often. This information is good too because it shows your character. They want to get an idea of your values, just like you want to understand the values of the company. Anything you can do to find out the values of the company ahead of time and see where you match up with that company and then bring it out in your resume, that's big because that'll show the employer, one, that you are looking at the company and that you're interested in the company, but also that you align with their values. So whether you put that in your skills or you work that into your description of your jobs or in that blurb up top, that's always good. So that's more or less what I wanted to cover today. I know it's very high level, and I know it's going to be very dependent on what kind of job you're going into. Again, Google different templates, always a big thing, always helpful. If you download templates, and you also don't have to, reinvent the wheel. People have done it before. The last thing I'll really point out is make sure you have someone review your resume before you submit it. If you can't find someone, even going on to something like Fiverr online, you might have to spend like $10 to do it, $5-10, but you can get someone to review your resume. There's also a lot of other services. Some of them are free, some of them are less money, more money, that can review your resume and tell you, what should and should be edited. Look into doing that. Yeah, it's a little bit money up front, but it's an investment into getting a potentially better job. So resumes. Hope you guys like this lesson. I felt like I had to talk fast today. I apologize if it was too fast, but a lot of information. Hopefully you can build a good resume off of this. Start working on yours today if you haven't. Again, we kind of talked about this like you were having an entry-level job, but this also applies pretty much anywhere in your career, right? Anytime you're going from one job to another, even internally, you should put together a resume so that when you apply for that job, you have something to show and say, this is my experience, this is what I've done, this is what I'm looking to get out of this role. So, hope that helps. Hope you guys are doing good. Hope you guys are enjoying this series as always. If you are, feel free to subscribe. Always appreciate it. You can hit me up on Twitter, link in the description, where we can talk more about resumes. I am interested, if you're looking for a job right now, how's your resume looking? What areas do you feel like could be strengthened? Or is it just a situation where you're not quite sure how to put together a resume in the first place? Hopefully this helps, but feel free to leave that in the comments below. I will see you guys tomorrow for another lesson. See you guys.